Hi everybody, my name is Dr. Debunk. My real name is Dr. Martin Filippino. I'm a family practitioner of 39 years. And about 5 years ago I started Dr. Debunk. And Dr. Debunk is who I am on social media. And what I'm doing is debunking medical myths, garbage, and crap spread by doctors and other health professionals. And this is going to be the beginning of about 2 months of weekly videos, one or two, that will take us down memory lane of what happened over the last 3 years. Because 3 years ago, in starting about January 31st, 2020, if I remember the date right, the president had a big announcement. And that was something weird was going on in China. And very quickly, it escalated and it became known as the crisis of the Martian virus, which I call the Martian Germ. And you know what I'm talking about. But I want these videos to circulate before somebody doesn't like them so that you can have an understanding of what's happened over the last 3 years from a medical perspective, from a doctor who treated the Martian Germ. Like, what just happened? I mean, the last time something like this happened was 1918, and that was before we even knew these kind of particular germs existed. And between then and 2020, there had been no gigantic events like the Martian invasion. But it changed us all forever. And very quickly, people saw that there's something wrong with this movie. Because basically, what happened, you can look at it this way, is that our government started to tell us that there was a boogeyman. And this is a big bad boogeyman. And if you're not careful, it's going to eat the eyeballs out of your children. And so they started this whole thing that wasn't medical science. You know, we've been treating Martian germs, these particular kind of germs, for 100 years. But when the Martian variety came along, all of a sudden, no, we're not going to do any science. We're not going to do medical science. It's not like we haven't treated serious germs like HIV or hepatitis C. When I became a doctor, hepatitis B still could put people in the hospital. But now it's weakened. All viruses get weaker. And nobody gets hospitalized anymore. I haven't put anybody in the hospital for hepatitis B for 25 years. Because all it's going to do is give you a really bad flu, and you might get a little jaundice, but, it's rare. I mean, and we're talking about normal people. Everything I'm talking here applies to normal people. And so for the next 8 weeks, you're going to get a review of what really happened from my perspective. Because the lies that were spewed out by government entities, especially that little prick called Gauci, obviously I'm altering his name a little. I'm doing it, I'm talking this way because, like I said, I want these to get circulated for a while before they get taken down, and maybe they won't, but we used to have free speech in America, but I don't get to have my opinion. And I'm going to tell you, my opinion is based on more science than what apparently exists in the CDC and that little prick Gauci who changed his mind every 3 to 6 months. Oh, if you get the jab, and you know what the jab is, you won't get the Martian. Oh, but then you did get the Martian anyway. But then he said, oh, if you get the jab, you won't get hospitalized. But then the hospitalization rate was the same for people who got the jab versus didn't get the jab. But in 2022, the same amount of people were in the hospital. So it didn't protect you from that. And now the Martian is a cold or flu variant, which, so what? And I did a little video on that and stuck it out there. Oh wait, no, it's not out yet. It's going to come out with this one. Anyway, so let's go back to the beginning. I jumped ahead. Too much time. But so if you remember the timeline, by January of 2020, on the 31st, the president made a big announcement. There's a big crisis. Something's going on here. 2 months later, by March 31st, I think that was about the time, this thing was worldwide. It was everywhere. In the United States, remember they put up that map and there was red dots everywhere, wherever the Martian was. And it was everywhere, in every major city. And I live out in the sticks in Central California. And it came here later because we didn't have Chinese visitors. The Chinese people that came here, which was 400,000 Chinese business people and students in November, December, and January, visited the U.S. So how many of them were infected in January and then spread it all over the country? Because that's the only way it could happen that fast. It went all over the country because there was a lot of people spreading it. And then it took off from there, and you know the rest of the story. It got worse and worse and worse, and the rest of 2020 through the summer and the winter was catastrophic. And I remember when this got going and we realized there's a crisis, there's going to be another Martian invasion like 1918. I thought, the government, they're doing what they always do. You know, I've watched the government. I'm an old buzzard. I've watched the government take crises, and either they create them or they take advantage of a crisis and they say, oh my gosh, the boogeyman is here and the boogeyman is going to eat you and your children. So we have to protect you. Only we, the government, can protect you from the boogeyman. I mean, look at all the wars. You look at every single war since World War One. You know, they turned it into the boogeyman. The United States shouldn't have been involved in World War One, World War Two, Korea, Vietnam, which was my war. I was the end of that in the Marine Corps. And look at the Middle East. What are we doing there? We've been there over 20 years because they invented a boogeyman called the radical jihadi terrorist, which by and large doesn't exist. There's so few of them, they can't do anything. Drunk drivers kill 100 times more people every year than any terrorist thing. But they love boogeymen because then they get to do whatever they want to us. And that's what's happened here. And so they announced that there's a new boogeyman and only we can protect you. And then that little prick Gauchi was all over the news all the time. And he just kept changing his mind on what to do. Because the important point for this little part is that, and this is an introduction, is that no one knew what to expect. This hadn't happened for 100 years. We didn't know the characteristics of this Martian germ. We didn't know how bad it would be. And I thought it was going to be twice as bad as the flu. I really did. I thought, oh, you guys are playing your stupid game again. You know, because remember after 9/11, oh my gosh, they're going to start crashing airplanes into every building everywhere. And pretty soon we'll be invaded. And it's just like, so let's get our army boys and go over there and kill them over there. Which is what they did. Is let's go over to the Middle East and kill people because then they won't kill us here. It's ridiculous. But I was totally wrong, truthfully. I thought it was going to be nothing, just double the flu. Maybe kill as many people in a bad flu season, 70,000. But it was the real deal. The first variation of the Martian was no joke. And I had 18 or so people in the hospital and one died. And I had a lot of sick people and I treated it. But very quickly, real physicians began to figure out what to do. See, this is a respiratory problem. It belongs to the specialties of ICU doctors and pulmonary doctors. Well, what the big university and the government was saying was all wrong on how to treat this in the beginning. But by, I think it was July or August, some very well-known doctors now, Dr. Corey is probably the most famous, and other doctors figured it out. They figured it out, and then there was a way for every doctor in America to treat this Martian infection because it really liked to bite people with diabetes and overweight, but mostly people with respiratory problems and advanced age. And so, but that's not what happened. And so this is just part one intro to how this went down. We have a new invasion here of a germ of unknown entity and power. But by the end of 2020, it was no joke. For those of you who think it was a joke, it wasn't. I don't think it killed as many people as they said, but people were mislabeled. And so the first variation was bad. And that's kind of my time. I have to quit at 10 minutes. So part two will come out very quickly. I'm Dr. Debunk.